Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. I am your host, Mark Ross, and with me this evening is Nicholas Jewett. Nicholas, you are an author and a speaker, and you're our host of other things, but I'll let you tell that story. Nicholas, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Now you are the author of a book called The Hunt for Healing. Excuse me, sorry about that. The Hunt for Healing. I've read through the book, and it's a deep read. It's a deep read, and it seems to be a very honest read, right? But before we talk about the book, tell me, Nicholas, about your journey, about how life was for you growing up, because we had this discussion before, and you mentioned a lot of things about how life was for you as a youngster and how that shaped how you viewed reality. So go back with me and share how things were for you, and how that foundation was set.
Yeah, it's kind of a rough start. Growing up, my parents divorced when I was 3 years old. It's not very positive thing back in those days. I got picked on because of that. A lot of issues, anger, not knowing how to cope with my emotions. So started fighting, just taking out my aggression with my fists, just not knowing how to deal with it. So I just kind of did the best I could. I got involved with the wrong crowd, got into some bad stuff, and just tried to deal with it. We didn't have money, food was scarce. I had to steal food from the cafeteria in high school. Got in trouble with the police, threatening us to try us as adults because we didn't stop fighting every day at recess. We're pounding on each other. And just kind of taking it with me throughout my college years. And just finally, at one point, I didn't know what to do. I had a God-sized hole. I tried to fill it with women, money, cars. I'm blessed with a good brain, so I got B's without even trying.
Yeah.
All my classes. But I thought about committing suicide. So it was a slow journey back to my faith, back to a father that does love me, even though my dad, isn't around and doesn't show that. And just having a lot of great experiences along the way. But, your emotions and things that happen to you kind of pull you away from what you can be grateful for because you're hurt and you're trying to deal with that. So I'm learning how to cope with that, focusing on gratitude and things of that nature. When I am feeling anxious, I learn breathing techniques, ways to manage that. And then, I learned how to stop holding on to everything. Growing up in poverty, I just wanted to keep everything to myself. I was afraid of losing things.
Yeah.
So now I'm learning to let go of that and to help other people. That's why I volunteer with NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, volunteer at a food pantry, I go on mission trips, things of that nature. I find a lot of joy in helping other people. And so that's why I feel like God called me to write that book, because hopefully one day it'll help a lot of people.
What lessons did you learn growing up that's helping you now?
A lot of things I learned growing up on a small hobby farm. I learned the value of hard work. I learned when my dad was around, was in the picture. He taught me how to work with my hands. He was a carpenter, a mechanic. I learned how to fix my own cars, work on my own houses, things of that nature. And in that, I learned that there's always a solution. That's done very well for me. No matter what it is, if you keep looking, keep thinking, it always, even when I think there is no solution, somehow one just appears if you just keep looking. Those have been great. And then I didn't learn until later in life, how to cope with the issues I was going through. But I learned along the way that it's okay to not be okay, right? I think that, we talked about that.
Mhm.
And to get help, eventually I was able to talk to a therapist because, when we grew up, you were broken, you were messed up or crazy if you had to talk to a therapist, something of that nature. And I think we all at some point in our lives need to talk to someone who's a professional in that area, even if it's just someone to talk to and talk through things. And we might figure it out on our own, but those things are not bad. And I think it shows strength when you can admit that, okay, I could use some help in this area, or I'd like to figure out how to better deal with these things. And so, luckily, working with NAMI, I see that kids these days are getting a lot more comfortable with that and are seeking help and getting help through it with therapy. So
Mhm.
it's very encouraging.
Mhm.
But those are some of the things I think have helped a lot.
Now, to what capacity are you working with the National Alliance of Mental Illness?
So I volunteer with them at high schools, middle schools. When they have openings, I can sign up and then I get to go and speak for like 40 minutes. We have a good slideshow, about breaking down the stigma around, talking to somebody, seeing a therapist, things of that nature. And I get to share a little bit about my story.
Sure.
I don't have the time to go through everything in that book,
Yeah.
but uh,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Cool. Cool. I remember during our initial conversation, you mentioned that you worked in sales and that you were really good at it. And you made a lot of money, but that hole wasn't full. You
right.
weren't complete. Talk about that experience because I think a lot of people, even in this day and age, still feel that stuff can make you happy, money can make you happy, but in reality, I think people with that frame of mind is still running from something. But can you talk about how you still felt empty even though you had stuff?
Well, that's exactly what happened to me. You just said it. I mean, in college, I wanted to commit suicide. I didn't want to hurt my sisters, my mom, so I vowed I'd never, come across that thought again. But I was making sales, making a lot of money, and my cousin and I, we had four-wheelers. I had two cars. We raced RC cars. So I love speed. I love racing. So I had like $3,000 worth of remote-controlled cars that we raced. And it was a sickness. Like I would go look at all my stuff, golf clubs and all this, to make myself feel better. And it was like an illness, right? You're
Mhm.
looking at material possessions, trying to make you happy. And it was a slow progression to get to the place where, my faith became my foundation. Some people think it's corny, but that's what it is. I mean, you
Sure.
have to have a strong foundation because this world is gonna try and beat you down, right? I'm sure you've experienced that, like we talked about. I mean, you got to have that foundation. So even in this moment, as I'm looking at another career change, it's easy to get stressed about that. But I'm
Mhm.
just having faith, doors will open, opportunities will come about. Something that will make me even, happier than
Mhm.
doing sales. Like I said, I'd love to speak to kids and speak more at schools, universities, churches, things of that nature, because a lot of things that I have gone through, kids are still going through. And I think it helps to share your story and talk them through things that they can do. And that even there's not one cookie cutter answer for everybody, but there is hope. And that's what I hope to give kids is hope.
Mhm. That's awesome. And it's funny that you mentioned that you the message that you wanted to give to people is hope because that was going to be my next question. What, so you beat me to it. You beat me to it. And I think more than hope, Nicholas, I think we need to understand that there is better days coming. We have to put ourselves in position by God's grace to prepare ourselves for those better days because nowadays you may talk to kids and you can look in their eyes and you just don't see that. You don't see that hope. You don't see it. It's like you're talking to you're talking to the wall almost.
Mm.
You know, you're talking in a whole different language when you talk about uh pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, or giving it your all and giving your best to be the best that you can be. And I don't know if you found some pushback during your conversations, but I will ask, what was it like to speak with the kids and in groups in terms of giving these people something that they don't know nothing about,
Well, I
or know little of? Let me
mean,
put it that way.
yeah, I mean, it's just sometimes when I speak to kids, I feel like I get a word maybe, or kind of like a nudging to talk about a certain thing more than other things. But it's just, a lot of kids don't understand. They're pulled in so many different directions these days. I'm thankful I didn't have to deal with social media and smartphones when I was a kid, because I
Mm,
can't imagine what that kind of puts on kids these days.
hmm.
Because they don't understand, when someone's bullying you, they don't understand that that person obviously is going through something themselves. So if you're a happy person, you're not gonna try and be mean to somebody else. And then they don't understand that when they go into all these problems and all these stresses, that these things aren't like designed to break them. They're designed to like show them that they can go through more than they think. Like with your experience, you didn't think you could go through all that stuff, boot camp and stuff like that. We don't know how strong we are.
Right.
I think that's something the kids need to understand. And it's not about the destination, but I'm still trying to fully grasp this. It's about the journey, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So the people you meet and the different, circumstances you have, like I've had some of the most amazing experiences from failures, right? There was like I was studying abroad in France and I missed my flight because I was trying to get on the metro and there was a strike. So I lost my $300 for that plane ticket. I had to take a train from Germany down to Rome. And it was the
Mm,
most beautiful like train ride and scenery, going through like tulip fields and such. I would never have had that experience had I not missed that flight.
wow.
So I mean, you can think about the bad things. There's always bad things that people can think about, right? But there's also good. And our brains are kind of designed to look at the bad things and protect ourselves and make ourselves feel comfortable and keep us in this little box. But there's so much more. There's so many things to be grateful for as well, especially in America.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went on a missions trip in a third world country, I mean, it really opens your eyes. Like, man, I
Mm.
have a lot more. I should be thankful for these things, like continuous hot water. Like, try taking a shower in a third world country. You got hot water for 1 minute.
Oh,
Like, you better be quick. You
yeah.
don't appreciate these things.
Absolutely.
Electricity fluttering, going out, on these hotels, and if you can call them a hotel. I mean, it's run down places, but there's so many things, the stench of sewage outside these third world countries.
Mm,
I mean, in most places here, like we have a safe environment, we have heat, electricity that's pretty dependable, hot water, it lasts, you take a 40-minute shower if you want. So
hmm.
many things, clean air. I mean, and the people were so happy when I was in El Salvador. These kids, they didn't have iPhones, they didn't have iPads. They didn't even have TV. They didn't have mail. There was no postal service down there. They were running around like yelling and happy and laughing. They didn't have any of that stuff. And I'm here trying to get like the new iWatch and iPhone and all this and
Stress.
iPad and
Yeah.
all this stuff.
Wow.
Little kids just don't understand some of that stuff. And sometimes it takes life experiences for them to totally grasp that. I'm hoping that I can give them examples so they can do better than I did, faster than I did.
Mm,
I don't want these kids taking 30 years to
mm,
figure things out like I did. 'Cause I went through a lot more pain than I needed to, right?
hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that. Uh, Nicholas, you mentioned to me also in our conversation a low point that you had in your life with your ex-wife. Now, uh, I would like for you to discuss how all that went down. And I don't know if that was the final straw for you to make changes to your life, but uh, I would like for you to discuss how that affected you and what made you do the necessary steps to evolve from where you were to say, hey, I need to do this because here it was just hell in the handbasket. So I need to get myself out of here and put myself here.
Yeah.
You dig what I'm saying? So I'll let you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, so that was a tough situation, right? This is my in my 30s, all my friends, were getting married, having kids. They're married into a family with kids. And I thought I should be married, right? Like,
Mm.
maybe I was too arrogant. I'm like, man, I should have been married before them. Stuff like that, But I just wanted to be married, and not having a father. I feel like I have a lot of love to give, and I want to be loved, obviously. And so I met this girl online, said she was a Christian, said she was a worship leader at her church, told me everything I wanted to hear. And that's another lesson for people too, is that when you have like your profile online, like you're just telling them everything that you want. So I kind of got catfish. She saw everything I said I wanted, and she said that she was all those things, but she really wasn't.
Mm.
And then she turned out to be schizophrenic,
Mm.
and her mom was on so many medications that you couldn't have a conversation with her like this.
Her mom was on medications as well.
Yeah. So
Oh.
because her mom and no, my ex-wife was not on medication, she refused to be on medication,
Mm.
and she refused to get help. That's one of like the things that kind of ended the situation. But I wanted to believe that she was that person. And every time I left or I tried to leave, and she'd come screaming or yelling or crying and begging me to take her back, and promising me that things would get better, that she would change, or she would do this or do that. And then I'm like, well, what about this? What about you said you're gonna do that? No, screw it, it's like, the heck with that. And it's just like, I just didn't know what to do. Like I wanna help her or I wanted to love her and be loved. She kept treating me poorly, like she abused me in every way. And I just tried to, I lied to the police and told them she didn't hit me and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because her neighbors in the condo would call the police all the time. She'd be yelling, screaming, throwing stuff at me, breaking stuff. So it's just really hard, and it just came to one point, she tried to hurt herself. She tried to jump off the balcony in our honeymoon in Malaysia and on the 23rd floor. I had to pull her off of the
Mm.
railing
Mm.
of the balcony.
Mm.
That was scary. You know, she like jumped out of my vehicle, my SUV, while I was driving, 25 miles per hour, but still I could have really hurt her. And, her family, I called them crying, like, this is what she's doing. Like, what is going on? Like, what I get myself into? They didn't say a word. They just kind of sat near the line. I'm like, well, help me out here.
Right.
And then she told me I'm going to hit myself and tell the police you did it because she got mad at me if I didn't say something, or, if I try to go to the gym or something and be around any
Oh my
other
God.
people. I was basically in prison, right? She kept me in her condo, and if I left or anything, she would freak out. So
Mm.
basically a prisoner in her condo,
Mm. Mm.
trying to love her. And then she told me she was gonna hit herself and tell the police I did it. And I said to myself, no one's gonna keep me from doing what God called me to do, which is like helping kids,
Mm.
trying to help other people. And so I went around her back and got in contact with my family because she wouldn't let me call my family or anything. She would check my phone all the time, right? And so I arranged for my brother-in-law and a friend to come get a rental truck and pick me up and get my stuff and get out of there. And I had to have put the police there too because she was going to do something, get me in trouble, right? So luckily, she gave the police officer permission to be there while I got my things and got out of there. and
Yeah.
she didn't act up too much, but he knew what was up, and he's like, "You were smart to contact us to have us here because
Yeah.
we know the situation." And yeah, so it was hard. I
Yeah.
was crying the whole way home trying to drive this rental truck. That's not what I wanted, but
Gee.
who she turned out to be is completely different than who she made herself out to be.
Mm.
So people, and I hear kids, "Oh, I'll never meet someone." I just want to be like, "Yes, you will." Just,
Yeah. Yeah.
just.
Just you wait.
It's like, why do you want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with you? I don't understand it. And I don't understand why she had to fake to be a totally different person when she knew I wouldn't be with her. And those kind of things aren't going to last. So I don't understand it, but some people do that. And
Yeah.
luckily I got out of there because could have been a lot worse.
It could have been. You could have been. We wouldn't be sitting here talking. You
Right.
would have been in jail or worse,
Yeah,
right?
well, she tried to hurt me several times. So she grabbed the steering wheel while we're driving on the freeway. She didn't care about her life or anyone else's. So I could have been killed. Yeah.
Mm. Well, that's crazy that you
But
had to
by
go
God's grace, here I am, right?
by God's grace, brother. By God's grace. What was the final straw of all the drama that said, you know what, I want to flip the script
Yeah.
and do better.
Well, that was just when she said, when she got mad and said, "Okay, whatever, I'm gonna hit myself and tell the cops you did it." That
Okay.
was the final straw. That's when I was like, "No, no, no one's gonna jeopardize my life like that.
Yeah.
Try and put me in jail."
Mhm.
So that's when I made the decision to get out of there. And then after, I healed and kind of mourned the loss of a wife, kind of a person who never really, was there. Kind of
Yeah.
like, almost like someone died, right? Because
Yeah.
it turned out to be a totally different person. After
Right.
I processed that, then I wanted to figure out, like, okay, so why, I've broken up with other girls for far less than that. So what
Mm.
happened here? Why did I keep going back and like giving her second chances, right? So I got into personal development, and that's when I learned a lot about, the human brain, why we do things, how we can improve things, how you can change your mood like rather quickly, how you can put yourself in a positive state. And I was able to help people with that as well, just talking people through some things, right? So I used to
Hmm.
be in a spiral of anxiety, right, when I'd wake up. And then it took me a long time to figure out how to get over that. They put me on medications. Finally I was able to get off those, but now I can help people with that in 2 minutes. I can tell them and ask them a question, say, "Hey, can you think of a time right now that you were happy and laughing and someone told you a joke or something?" And they'd say, "Yeah." Like, "Well, can you think about a situation that would make you depressed right now?" "Yeah." "Can you think about another happy situation where you were laughing and excited?" And they said, "Yeah." Yeah. And I'm like, "Well, what did you just tell me? What did you just prove to me and yourself?" Like, and
Mm.
they're thinking, like, "Well, you have control over your emotions, right? So you can stop that spiral of anxiety in its tracks." I'm like, "No, I'm going to think about something that's, more positive." So they call it like a pattern interrupt. You can do or say something and like, "No, and I'm going to focus on this thing," or "Stop."
Mm.
I'm going to
Mm.
stop letting that spiral of anxiety take me over, and I'm going to focus on something that's good and positive.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I was in a bad situation with a duplex that I rented out and they totally trashed it, vandalized it, everything.
Mm.
I was looking at over $10,000 in repairs if I did it myself. And so that
Yikes.
was a lot of money to me back in that time. And so I was
Absolutely.
same thing. Boom, here we go again. Waking up every day, anxiety, stressed out. And I had to practice this stuff like every morning, like taking like a half an hour to just, okay, I need to stop what is happening right now. I need to focus on something better, right? And I can help you with that in a matter of minutes. So it's, a lot of these life lessons I'd like to pass on.
Hmm. Hmm. So, with that being said, let's talk about your book, The Hunt for Healing. Uh, Give me a breakdown of what this book is about for the listeners, and what is the message behind writing this book?
So basically, it's my personal story, and I wrote it in hopes that people can see maybe some of my story in their own and realize that they can do things to improve their situation, their mindset, things of that nature. And also, I've gone through a lot of near-death experiences. I was given up on my doctors, um, just gave up on me, left me to die in the hospital in France from a snowboarding accident. But and God showed up, and I think if people would just think about situations in their lives, they can probably find a time or two when, yeah, I probably shouldn't be here, and God like got me here. He did that for a reason, right? Like I think if we're breathing, we have purpose in this life.
Mm.
So I want people to see that. And then the last chapter, I kind of broke down like a lot of the things that I've learned through, getting life coaching, going through personal development courses, done coaching through programs, through famous people like Tony Robbins, spent thousands of dollars. So just showing people like how they can better cope with and manage their emotions by things that I did. So it's just to see, that they're not alone. They might have gone through a lot of same things and feelings I did. And again, that there's hope.
Mm.
They can improve the situation, and we just need to think positively and have gratitude for things that we do have.
Yeah.
Because they say that, if you practice gratitude every day, like you're going to live 10 years longer. I believe there's some truth to that. Because if you let negativity just take you over, right? You're in a bad mood, you feel worse. You might be more susceptible to injuries or illnesses. But if you're practicing gratitude in a better mood, you know, doctors even say that illnesses will be harder for you to get if you're in that space and it's being grateful all the time.
Mm-hmm. 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 In your book, I read that you wanted to forgive your ex-wife, but you never mentioned if you were able to do that or not. So my question to you is, did you get that chance to speak with her and say, "Hey, I forgive you," or did you just let it pass?
Well, forgiveness is not a two-way street. You don't have to talk to someone and tell them I forgive you. You just got to do it in your heart, right? And sometimes with things that hurtful, some people never get to a place where they forget about it. But every time it comes up, I think my, family therapist, taught me is that you have to decide to forgive when those, you know, you remember things or you feel that kind of pain. Why did I do that? Or why did I let them hurt me? You have to just decide to forgive. But I haven't talked to her since then. I pray for her just like I pray for my dad. I pray that they'd be blessed. I pray that they'd be used for God's glory. I pray that they'd be able to experience some healing from the things that are hurting them because she never had love from her mom. Her mom said that she wanted her and her sisters to die, that they were like a burden to her, things of that nature. So she had a very traumatized life too, right? My dad had a militant father. He was, beaten and things of that nature. So he kind of held a lot of that hurt in him as well. So, and I've heard other people say too, like sometimes forgiveness is a long road, but you never forget what happened to you, but you need to choose to forgive when you think about those things. So that's kind of a spot where I've got come to. Sometimes you think about, how would I feel if I saw them? Because I travel a lot. I know she travels a lot for her work. And what if I saw her in an airport? Like how would I feel? Would I feel anger? Would I feel, hope that she would be in a better place? You know,
Mm.
that's kind of what I believe as far as forgiveness. But I told my dad, I forgive him. He said I appreciate that. He said he needs to get, some help to forgive his father, who is now passed.
Yeah.
But yeah, and even in my divorce care, we talk about, you don't have to get them to say anything. So you just gotta forgive on your end.
Indeed. Indeed. Um, I heard uh, a generational issue going on that you had to forgive your dad and your dad had to forgive his dad. Uh, Forgiveness is something that's very important in our development because without that, Nicholas, we're still holding on to that negative emotion. We're still holding on to that, well, he should have did this or she should have did this, and I'm not going to do anything because I was right. I was the one that was hurt, and I don't have to forgive. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who initiates a conversation. It doesn't matter because you got to let that go.
Hmm.
You got to, you have to be able to breathe without thinking or feeling or caring about anything, right? And I agree with you that even though you never had a chance to speak to your ex-wife, you have to let go for you. So regardless if she's there or if she's not, as long as you know in your heart that, hey, I'm cool, I'm good. I can still look at you and smile, right? I don't hold any negative emotions. I'm not holding anything, anything. That gives you the ability to sleep well at night.
Yeah, I wrote in my book, bitterness and unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting another person to die.
Yeah, hey, yeah,
You gotta let that go.
gotta let it go. You gotta let it go. So, and you said that you were able to forgive your dad too, so that's a good thing because that was also a question I was going to ask you. um, but forgiveness is huge, and without that, how can you grow?
Right.
You can't say, "Well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that," and deep down inside, you're still bitter.
I had to forgive myself too, right? Because
Yeah,
I was mad at myself,
yeah,
I keep thinking like, why did I
yeah.
let her do that to me? Why didn't I leave at the first red flag?
No.
Why did I give her a second chance like 6 times? We have to forgive ourselves sometimes. We're human. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. Business decisions. I've lost $30,000 on a business deal before.
Mm,
I just gotta let that go and forgive myself and say,
yeah.
just learn something from this. As
Amen.
long as you learn something, nothing is lost. People think about, failure as like something bad. Well, everyone, in the personal development space always talks about Thomas Edison, right? Well, he failed 1,000 times, right?
Right.
What did he say? He said, no, I found 1,000 ways that didn't work.
That didn't
And
work.
my progression to figure out how to make a light bulb work.
Mm,
If he would have gave up after like two or three, oh, I failed. We wouldn't have the light bulb, right? So you
hmm
gotta think about things in a healthier manner.
mm. Yeah, yeah. How often do you speak with kids or groups in general?
Not as much as I'd like to. I'm on like a mission trip or something, an orphanage. I get to talk to kids, and I'm doing volunteering. I try and instill these things I've learned on my niece and nephews. But I take every chance I can get. If I can find time or someone's got an opportunity for me, I'd love to speak.
Indeed, indeed. Uh, with that and your book, do you have anything else planned in your future?
Yeah, with career change coming up, I'm really focusing on, being a speaker. Maybe start with like part-time, hopefully get into full-time speaking, traveling. I love to travel and I love to help people. So I'd love to turn my book and my experiences and the coaching that I've received myself, and just talk to kids, colleges, wherever. And with my sales experience, I can bring some of that, to corporate as well.
Mm, mm.
But ultimately, I'm just trying to make the most impact I can. You know, when the devil tries to take you out like 7 times, you know, you want to do something back at him, right?
Yep. You get up 8. As
You
Denzel
got you got to
Washington would
put
say,
your foot in
you
the
fall
serpent's
down
neck,
7 times,
right?
you get up 8. Yeah. Keep getting up. Keep getting up. Nicholas, how can people contact you?
Oh, they can reach me at my YouTube channel is Don't Exist But Live. They can email me at nicholas.d.jewett@gmail.com. They can find my book on Amazon, The Hunt for Healing, or search by author Nicholas Jewett.
Okay. Okay. Nicholas Jewett, I appreciate you for taking a few minutes to come and speak about yourself and sharing your story and talk about your book, The Hunt for Healing. Uh, where can people get this? Out of curiosity.
Amazon.
Amazon. You heard them, ladies and gentlemen. Go to Amazon, check it out. It's a good read, guys. So I would recommend taking the time to browse through it. Um, it was a good read, and I hope that your journey is blessed and eventful because we need more good people out there hitting the ground like yourself, uh, trying to do God's will and God's good work for everybody because we need more hope out here in these streets. Our kids need to hear more messages of positivity and possibility. Um, we're 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 too uh, we're too what's the word I'm looking for? We see too much distraction.
Mm.
We see too much negativity, and we're not seeing anything that could really help us.
Right.
Right? And we need more positive minded people out there that can really uh, sit these people down and let them know that there are alternatives. There are things that you can do to better yourself, but you got to do the work. You got to do the work. We can show you the door, but you got to be willing to take it. So,
Right. I appreciate you too. Appreciate your podcast and the work you do to help people.
thank you, my brother. I really appreciate that, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. Go to my YouTube channel, guys. Click and subscribe. Show your support, show your love, support my movement, support my growth, and show your love for Mr. Nicholas Jewett as well. Nicholas, it's been a pleasure, sir. Have yourself a good evening, brother.
You too.
All right. Take it easy. And we'll talk soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.